Premier David Eby today announced new nurse-to-patient ratios in BC's healthcare system, a political promise just 3 days before the election campaign starts that critics say is a misuse of his government office. For more on that, let's bring in Rob Shaw at the BC Legislature. So, Rob, walk us through the concerns here.
Well, Stacey, let's start with the announcement first. The Premier committing today to new nurse ratios, so one nurse for every 3 patients in the ER, for example, or one nurse per patient in trauma or critical care. That's going to require $300 million in the hiring of many new nurses. Here's the Premier today.
We, in our discussions with nurses, were able to identify patient ratios as one of the key ways to support nurses. It sounds a little bit technical. It's not. It's just the idea that there is a fixed number of patients that any one nurse is responsible for.
The ratios won't start until the fall, which means nothing really happens unless the BC NDP gets re-elected, which makes this a campaign event, except the NDP today using the government offices of the Premier, taxpayer funds, nonpartisan civil servants, and other advantages that governments get to pull off this event. It used to be something when the BC Liberals did it 2017 that the NDP complained about. It's hard to compete against the might and the resources of the government. That is one problem. The other coming up today, creative math. Take a look at some of the numbers. Here you will see, in fact, you'll see the NDP claiming that you have 88% of people in British Columbia with a family doctor. Sorry, when in fact that is actually 700,000 people in the province without a family doctor. Not exactly the kind of good news that the graph is portraying here. A question of whether people feel like the progress has been made on new family physicians, a pay model, and other things like that from the government compared to the math being shown here. One good example of what we will be seeing in this election campaign, some selective statistics by all parties as they find ways to back up their points with crafty numbers. Still, again, a little bit easier for the NDP to pull off this material right now because they do have millions of dollars in their party war chest and all the resources of the provincial government. Here's the BC Conservatives today on that.
It is gross, though, and extremely frustrating when you see a government abusing its ability to make announcements as government when it's blatantly obvious that these are campaign promises. And, you know, I don't think a promise means much when it's coming from David Eby personally, considering the fact that he's failed to deliver on the majority of promises that he's ever made.
Premier up again tomorrow with a housing announcement, again blurring the line between government and party. Won't be able to do that for much longer because the campaign begins on Saturday. This is the kind of thing governments do, Stacey, and the oppositions complain about. One of the advantages of running for re-election when you are the government, you got nothing but money and resources behind you to make your partisan points.